listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, May 8th, 2026. And of course, it's Friday. You can tell because you're hearing my voice. Your readers today are Don Williams and
J.J. Patek.
Oops, I just got that out of order.
Something like that.
Off to a rocky start here. We're going to start with the weather. Speaking of rocky starts, a couple of showers today, it says. We're already getting those. The sun rose at 6:01, but you couldn't see it with the clouds. High of 53 today and a low of 43. Tomorrow, more showers, high of 61 and a low of 46. Sunday, a passing morning shower and a high of 55 and a low of 37. I'm getting tired of hearing these 30s. Monday, a shower in the morning and then a high of 54 and a low of 37. Tuesday, partly sunny and cool. High of 52 and a low of 41. Wednesday, mostly cloudy and cool with a high of 54 and a low of 42. And Thursday, times of clouds and sun. High of 59 and a low of 45. 54 degrees was the high temperature in the last 24 hours or so, with a low of 39. Normally, it's more like 65 and 45. And the records, 83 in 1982 and 29 in 1970. Last year was a bit warmer than it was yesterday. 29 for a high, 57 for a high and 48 for a low. So, trace of precipitation yesterday. We're just about 5 inches ahead of normal on total precipitation year to date. 14 hours and 23 minutes of possible sunshine today. The extreme temperatures nationally, Titusville, Florida, 97. And Leadville, Colorado, it's only up to 10 there. Which state holds this is the weather trivia, which state holds the greatest number of U.S. temperature records? If you had to think, where's the state that has the most microclimates and the biggest distance between the northern and southern borders? You'd pick California and you'd be right.
Where else but?
So, that's the weather. Time for the front page.
Time for the front page. Well, Hochul calls the budget done while others say no deal. This is from Robert Gavin, who's the Albany bureau chief. Governor Kathy Hochul's announcement Thursday of a general agreement on a new $268 billion state budget, pocket change, came with a digital slide presentation, a room full of applauders, and a long list of proposals that Hochul said were in the spending plan. She said it included increased state aid to the city of Buffalo, expanded child care and pre-kindergarten programs, changes to New York's auto insurance costs, prohibitions on local police working as deputized federal immigration agents, and streamlining of New York's environmental review process to lessen red tape and encourage the construction of housing. And the governor said all came out of negotiations between herself, Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie, the Democrat from Bronx, and Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins, a Democrat from Yonkers, the three most powerful figures in state government. There's just one problem. Those other two figures contradicted Hochul's announcement of a general agreement. There's no budget deal. There's no deal, Heastie told reporters. He said he told Hochul on Wednesday that he'd be comfortable with her announcing that they were close to a budget deal, but that an agreement was not that an agreement was reached. A spokesman said Stewart Cousins agreed with Hastie's assessment. There's so many open issues on money, Heastie said. We've signed off on nothing major. The contrast provided the latest controversy for a budget due April 1st. A little overdue there. Lawmakers cannot receive paychecks while the budget is late. Hasty repeatedly has griped publicly that a 2004 Court of Appeals decision allows governors to include non-fiscal policy proposals, such as Hochul's proposal for insurance law, in the budget. He has said it keeps budget discussions focused on those issues, delaying talks on spending. And that's what I'm telling you is all wrong with this process, said Hasty. I'm saying this to you all very clearly. I'm never doing this again. Budgets are supposed to be about money, not policy. When a reporter mentioned to Hasty what Hochul has said, Hasty said, I don't care what the governor says. Assembly Minority Leader Edward Ra, a Nassau County Republican whose conference is often at odds with Hasty, thanked Hasty for sticking up for the legislature against the governor. She's out here announcing a deal that doesn't actually exist, Ra told reporters, adding that Hochul got nothing other than talk. Nothing done other than talk. Earlier Thursday, as Hochul described the budget, she continually repeated one phrase, we got it done. Buffalo, which faces deficits in the tens of millions of dollars over the next 2 years, is set to receive at least $206.3 million in state aid in the budget. That includes an increase of $40 million. The Buffalo-born Hochul said the increase would not be less than $40 million. The Assembly pushed for an additional $16.8 million on top of the extra $40 million. We want to be very helpful to cities across New York like Buffalo, and that's why we've added additional money beyond what they received in the past. I'm proud of that, Hochul said. The numbers are still being finalized, but what we're going to do is what we can help out the city of Buffalo as well as our other upstate cities, and actually New York City, we're here to help. Hochul said the budget includes $40 billion for education and $15 billion in reserves. Hochul, a Democrat facing re-election in November, introduced a $260 billion budget in January focused on affordability for inflation-zapped New Yorkers. On Thursday, Hochul said the general agreement on the budget would allow pre-kindergarten to be available for every 4-year-old in the state by the start of the 2028 to 29 school year. Prevent plaintiffs who are more than 50% responsible for an auto incident to collect payments for pain and suffering. Cap auto insurance payouts to drivers who are found to have been intoxicated, uninsured, or committing a felony during an incident. Define serious injury for lawsuits seeking pain and suffering payments. And Hochul said New York has the nation's highest auto insurance rate at roughly $4,000 a year, which he said is $1,500 more than the national average. To require every 3D printer sold in the state to include technology blocking it from printing a gun. Increasing criminal penalties for the production of ghost guns that lack serial numbers, prevent insurance rates from being set based on New Yorkers' education, zip code, or what you do for work, place a cap on excess profits insurance companies bring in, making sure that New Yorkers benefit from the savings our reforms create and not the insurance companies. Prevent local law enforcement agencies from working as deputized federal immigration officers on civil matters, which is available under a 1996 federal law, and bans officers from wearing masks while engaging with the public. Relax the State Environmental Quality Review Act, which is SEQRA, to make it easier for municipalities and other entities to build housing, to include a $1 billion energy rebate to New Yorkers dealing with rising energy costs, create buffer zones around houses of worship to keep protesters away from congregants. Hochul says such activities was not free expression. This is harassment and has no place in the state of New York. Hochul also said changes were coming to the Tier 6 pension plan, which includes 780,000 state and local employees, including close to 61,000 workers in Western New York, hired as of April 1st of 2012. But she said it would be a much more scaled-down version of what advocates were reforming Tier 6 had sought. The governor had also sought for new target dates under the state's Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, or the CLCPA, that former Governor Andrew Cuomo signed in 2019. The law required the state to lower pollution-linked emissions by 40% by 2030 and 85% by 2050. The new target dates, according to people familiar with the matter, would require the state to reach the soft target of 60% by 2040, and New York would employ use of a less restrictive counting formula to measure emissions than the standard it has been using. We cannot meet current timelines without driving energy costs higher, Hochul said. The facts bear that out, and I can't let that happen. We have to strike the right balance between our clean energy ambitions and the affordability pressures that real New York New Yorkers are facing now. In response to Hochul's announcement, Blakeman said in a statement, Kathy Hochul's budget is a triple threat to your wallet: more taxes, record spending, and a utility bill crisis with no end in sight. In fact, it should be labeled hazardous to your bank account. When I'm Governor, I'll put an end to Hochul's war on the middle class by cutting income taxes, slashing your utility bill in half, and stopping the state from taking another dime of your hard-earned money. Lawmakers passed an extender bill to fund state operations through Monday. Should be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Turning to local news, the Buffalo Sabres finally have a jersey patch sponsor, and the business they are partnering with was right under their nose the whole time. Amherst headquartered Stark Tech has reached an agreement to become the Sabres' first jersey patch partner starting next season. It is a multi-year deal that industry experts estimate is worth more than $2 million. Stark Tech had already established a long-term relationship at KeyBank Center as a provider of ice and building maintenance. The Building, Infrastructure, and Energy Solutions Company is also the official building solutions partner for the other Terry Pagula-owned team, the Buffalo Bills, and is working on the construction project for the team's new stadium. This marks a historic milestone for Stark Tech, company president Tim Geiger said in a statement. After more than 30 years of supporting the Buffalo Sabres at KeyBank Center, we're proud to expand our partnership as the patch partner for away games. This builds on our strong presence across Buffalo's professional sports landscape. It's an effort 4 years in the making for the Sabres after the National Hockey League team, for the first time, the National Hockey League, for the first time allowed for jersey patch sponsors during the 2022-23 season. An estimated 28 of the 32 NHL teams have a jersey patch sponsor. Partnering with the Buffalo Sabres has become increasingly appealing after the team ended its 14-season playoff drought this season, having reached record numbers for social media views and engagement, and for local and national TV broadcasts. Obviously, the success on the ice is creating social impressions, digital engagement is at an all-time high, TV ratings continue to grow, and fan sentiment has never been stronger. But there's definitely a business case to be made here outside of what's happening on the ice, said Jake Vernon, Chief Commercial Officer for the Sabres. This is a perfect storm scenario where things on the ice are happening and things off the ice are happening. The deal will also include the Sabres telling the story of Stark Tech, which specializes in enhancing energy efficiency, integrating smart building technologies, and in engineering renewable energy systems, and how the company has worked in the sports and entertainment industries to grow nationally and globally. The two sides see this as an opportunity to spread the company's message and accelerate its presence. As much as we're seeing success on the ice, this relationship was really built around how we can help each other from a business perspective, Vernon said. Stark Tech has some lofty growth plans over the next few years, and we know there's an impact we can have for them. One of Vernon's main focuses when he came to the Sabres over the summer was to identify potential suitors and close a deal with a jersey patch sponsor. One of his first conversations was with Rob Beckman, Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer for Stark Tech, a connection initially made through a college friend. What started as a casual conversation as Vernon made his rounds to meet people in Buffalo turned more serious. As we got to know each other and started to talk about our business and what we were trying to do as an organization and what they had going on at Stark Tech, it almost was a natural fit. And we should talk more about how we can help each other, Vernon said. Beckman said Stark Tech started small, but has grown into a company that now has the capability to take on more significant work in providing tech-enabled solutions that can bring operational, financial, and energy efficiencies across industries. That growth has enabled us to enhance our partnership with the Buffalo Sabres, Beckman said in a statement. The Sabres initially partnered with Legends Global 4 years ago to manage the search for a jersey patch sponsor. Legends, which also has major influence with the Bills and their over $2 billion stadium under construction, billed it as an opportunity for a locally based company looking to gain incredible exposure in the market and beyond. The Sabres instead decided to bring the process of finding a jersey patch sponsor in-house and use their own sales staff to close the deal, Vernon said. The team says it is still in search of a home jersey patch sponsor and getting closer to reaching a deal on that front. As part of the deal, Stark Tech will have a digital presence with the Sabres. Its logo will be displayed around the arena, and it will be sponsored for 3 stars at the end of home games. The Sabres say they are expecting to add 10 new corporate partners by the start of the 2026-27 season, as partnership engagement and impressions are at an all-time high with the team's social media and TV broadcast numbers through the roof. The team has already added significant local revenue by bringing on helmet sponsors, which was first allowed by the NHL during the 2020-21 season when the pandemic put the league and its teams in a financial hole. KeyBank, the namesake of the arena, became the sponsor for the team's away helmet before the start of the season. Healthcare professional recruitment from Trusted Nurse Staffing became the Sabres' first home helmet sponsor during the 23-24 season and remains in that spot, using the moniker Trusted Helmet on the team's helmets. Well, you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service at 16 minutes past the hour. We're going to turn to the editorial pages. Our local editorial today headlined, "To the Rescue. Good-hearted residents are providing shelter, transportation, and even saving lives." This week's recognitions include community members who have given back, one while risking his own life, and a new program that is designed to close the transportation gap for members of underserved communities on the east side. A mission of shelter grows. Pastor Al Robinson and his wife Vivian sheltered more than 100 people inside their Lovejoy Church during the deadly 2022 Christmas blizzard. As reported by the news, Jay Tokaz, the couple plan to provide housing for women with drug addictions, and to do so are selling the church complex at 115 Gold Street. Many may remember that the Robinsons, among others, worked tirelessly during that blizzard in 2022 that took the lives of 47 people. The Robinsons welcomed more than 100 people, many from the neighborhood who had lost power. He also took in people who were stranded in vehicles on nearby roads. The couple made good use of social media and organized snowmobilers to bring even more people to warmth and comfort. The Robinsons, who began Spirit of Truth Urban Ministry in 2010, are now pouring that mission into a model designed to deliver people from addiction. Al Robinson is a state-certified addiction recovery coach. The new plans involve a sober living village featuring tiny homes, usually 400 square feet or less, where women with drug addiction can live for as long as 2 years. Robinson is also president of Rebecca Rose and J.A. Hauser Sobriety Services, a nonprofit that combines faith-based practices with neuroplasticity science in addressing addiction. 2 potential locations in Western New York are being considered for the tiny home village, including a site in Springville. This is a wonderful example of taking lessons learned during a crisis into broader service for the community.
And firefighter courage. Speaking of giving back, the News' Stephen T. Watson describes a stellar example for the bright side last Saturday. The story features Gatsville Fire Captain Chris Koplovich, who was able to respond to a March 13th house fire on Radcliffe Drive because he happened to have his turnout gear at home. When Koplovich discovered that people were still inside, he rushed in to escort one occupant out of the home. Then he returned with the help of a caretaker, got a woman in a wheelchair out of the home. Koplovich went back a third time with a fellow Gatsville firefighter to stop the fire from spreading from the attached garage into the main residence. 6 weeks later, Koplovich was recognized by the Amherst Town Board for his efforts to rescue the homeowners. Joanne Markey survived the fire, though her husband Patrick later succumbed to his injuries. Koplovich is among those volunteer firefighters whose work is so critical to communities, often serving as the first and most vital line of response in emergencies. So kudos to him. And then transit access. And for more vital assistance, this time in transportation, an article by the News' Mackenzie Schumann highlights Light City Car Share, a new service where members who join can rent electric vehicles by the hour or by the day. The focus of the business is on Buffalo's east side, as Schumann wrote, where many people face transportation difficulties. According to Sinclair McGuffin, Director of External Communications at Light City Car Share, 1/3 of east side households don't have access to a car. The fleet so far includes 3 all-electric vehicles, a Chevrolet Bolt sedan and 2 Chevrolet Equinox SUVs. McGuffin said he's hoping the program grows and more cars get added. Closing the transportation gap for those who need to get to work, school, and doctor's appointments could prove transformative, offering not just convenience, but new access for opportunities for residents who have long gone without reliable options. A nice, happy story.
Mm-hmm. Turning now to the political cartoons, not really political today. Adam Zinglis has a drawing. It's titled "A Dog with a Doan." It spells D-O-A-N, and they show the goal, the Montreal Canadiens goal, with their goalkeeper in the outer part of the goal area. They show Zach Benson over on the far left-hand side and Josh Doan on the right with the puck right in front of him, ready to shoot it into the net. Benson got the assist on that goal, and Doan scored the opening goal in the game against Montreal, which they wound up winning 4-2. Tom Stalich of the Creators Syndicate pays a tribute to Ted Turner, whose death was reported in yesterday's paper. Ted Turner, we remember him.
Yeah.
Some of us remember him more fondly than others, but he's quite a guy. Was quite a guy. Had
hard to be neutral on him.
Holdings all over the place in media. Turner Network, Turner Broadcasting, Turner Classic Movies, CNN, and he owned a couple of sports teams. He owned a yacht that competed successfully, I believe, in the America's Cup races. I think he won once. He also owned the Atlanta Hawks, and he also owned the Buffalo Braves until he sold them to a team that moved them to San Diego and thence to Los Angeles. But, oh well, those were the days.
Those were the days.
Did have an NBA team here.
Well, now we will move on to the voting. Am I in the right place? Voting Rights Act ruling will promote corrupt electoral maps. Wait a minute, am I in the right place?
Clarence Page's editorial.
Okay, great. I got started a little late looking for my articles. The Reverend Martin, this is from Clarence Page, yes. The Voting Rights Act ruling will promote corrupt electoral maps, and the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. cautiously praised the hard-won Voting Rights Acts of 1965 as a great step forward toward removing obstacles that kept Black Americans from voting, and it was. But last week, in striking down a voter redistricting map in Louisiana, the Supreme Court has taken that embattled law and movement that marched and campaigned for it on a disastrous step backward. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker expressed the sentiment of many Americans, particularly Democrats, saying of the High Court ruling it's an attack on a crown jewel of our democracy. As an old-timer, I fondly recall how the passage of the Voting Rights Act intensified the landmark desegregation reforms of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 by prohibiting discrimination at the polling place. Now, the Supreme Court rollback of voting rights strikes me like another backlash similar to the one that ended Reconstruction, the era of reform in the tumultuous post-Civil War period that focused on rebuilding the South and defining the rights of some 4 million newly freed African Americans, including some of my ancestors. The white political elite of former Confederacy assiduously fought the reforms that liberated African Americans, particularly the right to vote, introducing poll taxes and literacy tests, as well as resorting to terrorism acts by the likes of the Ku Klux Klan to turn back the clock.
After a decade-long struggle between pro-Reconstructionist radical Republicans against recidivist Redeemers, who sought to re-establish white supremacy in the South, The era ended in the Compromise of 1877, aka the Corrupt Bargain, which settled the closely contended presidential election of 1876. Republican Rutherford B. Hayes was given the presidency in exchange for the end of Reconstruction. The cost was paid by Southern blacks who lost whatever claim they had in the South to civil rights, especially voting rights, and would not return another African American to Congress until almost a century later. The central issue of Louisiana versus Calais, the case the justices relied on last week, was whether Louisiana was justified in drawing a second congressional district where a majority of voters are racial minorities. The state of Louisiana has 6 congressional districts, and 1/3 of its population identifies as black. Courts had found that under established Voting Rights Act tests, the state should include a second majority-minority district. But Louisiana drew only one, so minority plaintiffs sued. Lower courts found that the VRA required Louisiana to draw a second majority-minority district, but after the state complied, white plaintiffs sued, saying the second district drawn with racial goals in mind, violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. States under the law are not supposed to enact rules that make it harder for racial minorities to elect their candidates of choice. In 1982, Congress passed an amendment signed by President Ronald Reagan stipulating that the Voting Rights Act could be invoked to ensure adequate minority representation. The amendment seemed to work, leading to a steady rise in black representatives in Congress. Until now, the court's conservative majority maintained that it has upheld the landmark law, as liberal justices accused the court of gutting it. Either way, in striking down the Louisiana voting map as a racial gerrymander, this outcome could influence how other states defend or challenge maps too. The High Court's 6-3 decision was celebrated as a big win by President Trump, who has been pushing Republicans to alter electoral maps in a desperate effort to maintain a hold on the House in the upcoming midterm elections. While Trump may find the court's ruling convenient, many Americans see it as partisan and bad jurisprudence.
I'm not ready to declare a new corrupt bargain has been foisted upon us, but without squinting too hard, you could have seen this coming from a mile away. A certain kind of conservative has been trying to repeal or gut the Voting Rights and Civil Rights Acts ever since they were passed, and that kind of conservative now runs the Republican Party. Calais likely will make it harder to bring successful claims without stronger evidence of intent, which legal experts point out is almost impossible to prove without extraordinary mind-reading abilities. That's an old, contentious, and questionable standard for a discrimination complaint. And its revival is an old and unfortunately effective way, as critics like Justice Elena Kagan argued in her dissent, to engage in racial vote dilution and cracking of minority voting districts, threatening minority electoral influence and racial fairness. Justice Samuel Alito's opinion on behalf of the conservative majority, as CNN's court analyst Joan Biskupic pointed out, leaned heavily on the view Chief Justice John Roberts expressed in his 2013 decision in Shelby County versus Holder that voting safeguards enshrined in 1965 were no longer essential to America. No. In other words, the civil rights reforms have had too many successes for us to require much policing by civil rights laws. Oh. It's hard not to be reminded of the ignominious death of the Reconstruction era, except this time the point is not to deny black citizens the vote, it is quite transparently to make their votes count for nothing.
Well, I'll maybe call that to mind later in the broadcast when we read an article about Justice Roberts and his feelings. But for now, we're going to turn to a couple of the local writers. Marty Walters has an interesting Mother's Day story. This is in my view today. Was it my fault Mom abandoned us on Mother's Day? Grudgingly, as one of her 11 children, I accept 1/11 of the blame. Even if I could remember, I wouldn't mention who the main culprit was that long ago day. As third youngest of her brood of 9 boys and 2 girls, I was maybe 9 or 10, old enough to know better than to poke the hornet's nest. A few Mother's Days had passed between my father's death and that fateful day. Anne Marie O'Connor had met Bill Walters on the dance floor at Crystal Beach. In the early 1940s, the Good Ferry Canadiana transported throngs of young and old from wartime worries in Buffalo to the great escape of Crystal Beach Amusement Park. As fortune would have it, Anne had a sister, Mary, and Bill had a brother, Dick. Anne married Bill, Mary married Dick. Consequently, my first cousins and my siblings all resemble brothers and sisters. To this day, we all love each other like brothers and sisters. After my father died of complications from being one of the first kidney transplant recipients in Western New York in 1965, life became a bit more complicated for Mom. Without a partner, she was now tasked with raising 11 children. She raised us with unconditional love, devotion, and self-sacrifice. So, a few years after my father died on one fateful Mother's Day, it may have been puzzling for Mom to receive for her heroic efforts a single card with this message, Happy Martyrs' Day. No flowers, no other cards that could have blunted the impact of that sarcastic salute. After the card was received, it took only one question to set my mother off. Mom, what's for dinner? The hornet's nest had been duly poked. My mom, who truly did not get mad at us very much or very often, announced to us all, I am going to go upstairs, and I am packing a bag. I am going to the airport. I am going to buy a ticket to San Francisco, and I don't know when I'll be coming back. 6 years later, I can't help but cry, thinking of the hurt and anger her oblivious 11 kids caused her that day. She had good cause to abandon us, and abandon us she did. What's for dinner became the least of our collective worries. A few hours later, we were greatly relieved to see her pull back into the driveway. It's not that she had a change of heart, but a change of circumstance prompted her welcome return. On the way to the airport, she stopped at the local supermarket to cash a check to fund her travels. To our immense relief and good fortune, the store was closed on Sundays. New York State's blue laws, which then closed stores on Sundays, also saved a large family of ingrates from singing the blues that Mother's Day. We never again forgot to honor her properly on Mother's Day. On June 6, 1997, with all of us gathered around her, she left this earth around 11 p.m. Just then, from beside her hospital bed, we looked out the window and saw fireworks going off at the downtown ballpark. After we said our goodbyes, I got in my car and most wonderful classical music was playing. When it was over, the announcer reported that was Wagner's Death and Transfiguration. I remember that piece well. Bliss, Happy Mother's Day, Anne Marie O'Connor Walters. You are greatly loved.
Gee, he must listen to the same station I do. I think you do too. From the viewpoints, we have another voice in government from Joseph H. Eminger, the town of Tonawanda supervisor. Much has been said and written about the 25% tax levy increase being proposed by Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan, and most of the comments have expressed anger at how he could suggest such a high tax increase. No one likes paying taxes. However, as someone who's been responsible for setting a large municipality's budget for over a decade, I'll only say that I'm surprised it's not higher. Every town supervisor and mayor I know will tell you that prolonged periods of little or no tax increases, which Buffalo experienced, are not good fiscal management. Why not? Because as difficult as it is meeting your own household budgets in these days of high inflation and rising utility costs, it's even more difficult for municipalities. Furthermore, what do all residents want from their local governments? They want their roads to be plowed in the winter, potholes fixed, amen, and a more comprehensive approach to law enforcement at minimum. Local governments are all about providing day-to-day services to their residents and business owners at the lowest responsible costs. I'm certain that Ryan is not thrilled with what he's proposing, but as a chief elected official in Buffalo, he must take ownership and make decisions that serve the long-term good of the city, and sometimes those decisions are hard, painful, and unpopular. Isn't that what we want from our elected officials? To make the hard, unpopular decisions for the good of their municipality? If you're looking for blame, I don't think it's fair to, quote-unquote, shoot the messenger. Ryan, who is a little over 3 months into his first term, had to face the hard reality that if he doesn't raise revenue or cut expenses significantly, the financial situation of the city will only get worse. You can only cut expenses so much before the quality of life in your community goes down. City residents for years have claimed that their services are inferior to the surrounding suburbs, which may be true, but they also pay far less in taxes. In other words, you get what you pay for. Once Ryan gets the financial situation of the city hammered out, the burden will then fall upon his shoulders to provide better quality services. If he doesn't, he should face retribution from voters. And that is from Joseph Eminger, the Town of Tonawanda supervisor, who is stepping down after this term.
Yes, I remember.
But boy, those potholes, boy, if they could fix those, I'd be happy.
He makes some good points in that article.
Well, now they'll give you a ticket. You know how the police always give tickets to people who swerve on a road?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now, okay, this is a joke. They give tickets to people who drive straight because you'd have to be drunk to drive through those potholes. It's like they're driving through canyons.
Well,
realignment is a joke on your car. You drive out of the driveway and bam, there you go again.
Mayor Ryan says that hot patch is much more effective than cold patch when it comes to patching potholes. But even cold patch is better than no patch, which is what he's doing now. Mm-hmm. Oh, we're politicizing. We're not supposed to. Let's turn to...
We live here.
Let's turn to the finance pages. The SEC review delays first prediction market ETFs. More than 24 exchange-traded funds tied to elections, recessions, tech layoffs, and other real-world events are still awaiting U.S. regulatory clearance as issuers race to package the booming prediction market business into a product retail investors can trade as easily as a stock. Round Hill Investments, Granite Shares, and Bitwise filed in February with the Securities and Exchange Commission to launch products seeking to capitalize on booming interest in prediction markets. The launches, originally expected this week, have been pushed back as the SEC seeks more information from issuers about product mechanics and disclosures, two people familiar with the matter said. The delay is likely temporary, according to these people, who asked not to be identified discussing private regulatory matters. Under SEC rules, ETFs, that's exchange-traded funds, are automatically effective 75 days after filing unless the SEC steps in. That 75-day holding period was due to expire this week. A spokesperson for the SEC, which has taken a more relaxed stance toward clearing the way for novel ETFs under the Trump administration, declined to comment, as did Round Hill CEO Dave Mazza and a spokesperson for Granite Share. It's an area that is maturing rapidly, and regulations and oversight are maturing rapidly as well, said Matt Hogan, Chief Investment Officer at Bitwise, noting other innovative products such as Bitcoin ETFs went through lengthy reviews but were ultimately launched successfully. He would not comment for this article on the regulatory discussions that were expected for the approval timeline. Prediction market betting has boomed since pioneers Kalshi and Polymarket accurately forecast Donald Trump would win the 2024 presidential election, and Trump's Commodity Futures Trading Commission said it would regulate the market rather than ban it. Interactive Brokers, IBKR, Robinhood, and others have also entered the market, which they expect to get a further boost from this year's midterm elections. But remarkably well-timed wagers on the Iran war and other military events have drawn scrutiny from lawmakers who say prediction markets create incentives to foment violence, as well as drawing insider trading scrutiny from federal prosecutors. Still, ETF providers seek ways to transform every hot trend into new products, said Dave Nedig, Director of Research at ETF Trends. Everybody in the ETF market is looking for something that's new or different they can bring to the table, and this is just the latest example, he said. He added that the ETF products could be attractive to retail investors because ETFs are easier to trade than the underlying event contracts. Combined, the three issuers have filed for more than 24 prediction market-linked ETFs, with the first focusing on this year's Senate and House midterm races and the 2028 presidential election, according to SEC data. Others focus on events such as tech industry layoffs and whether the U.S. will enter a recession this year. Bitwise filed Friday for an ETF that would allow users to bet on the price of crude oil topping $120 a barrel this year. Precise futures differ, but the ETFs generally use derivatives to track the odds of binary yes-no outcomes in underlying contracts traded on CFTC regulated exchanges such as Kalshi. Those contracts, and many users can buy hundreds of contracts, pay out $1 if an event takes place but nothing if it doesn't. Similar to the way other products like options and futures track an asset over a predetermined time frame, these ETFs offer users the chance to roll their positions into a similar outcome for the next election, calendar year, or other period. The SEC filings are full of warnings about the potential impact of new regulations, litigation, and what Roundhill describes as heightened risks related to insider trading and event contracts. Investors also run the risk of catastrophic losses, it warns. And even if an outcome such as the number of tech industry layoffs or the result of an election is disputed or later revised, investor losses are final. In that scenario, investors will have no recourse, Roundhill warns. Some market participants say that mainstream investors increasingly find prediction markets useful. Edward Ridgely, co-founder of Stand, a trading platform that consolidates prediction market order books, said some clients use event-driven contracts to hedge their exposure to everything from bonds to crude oil. The prospect of adding prediction market ETFs to the mix is tantalizing, he said.
And from Jonathan Epstein, we have a development article. Dairy projects seek breaks to help finance massive farm. The partners behind a proposed new large-scale dairy farm in Chautauqua County are asking the Chautauqua County Industrial Development Agency to issue $7 million in taxable and tax-exempt bonds to help finance the $25.18 million venture. Eden farmer Brendan O'Gorman, a partner in Eden Valley Farms, is teaming up with veteran Cherry Creek dairy farmer Nelson Nobles to create Cherry Creek Dairy with 7,000 dairy cattle, a rotary milking parlor with 120 stalls, and the capacity to produce over 500,000 pounds of milk every day. It will be located on 45 acres of a 389-acre property owned by Nobles Farms at 7782 Mile Strip Road in Cherry Creek. A joint venture would include 6 $105,000 square foot free stall barns with 1,050 stalls in each to house the cows, as well as milk cooling and storage facilities in a milking parlor and feed storage facilities to hold more than 100,000 tons of feed annually. They would be harvested from 8,000 acres of local cropland. And it would include a manure separation and recycling facility to turn cows' waste into renewable natural gas for a power generator system. Okay, I'm picturing that one. At the same time the project was first unveiled, the partners had not provided any financial information about the project, but they've since submitted a more detailed application in which they are asking for $5 million in tax-exempt bonds and $2 million in taxable bonds, as well as $134,000 in sales tax breaks, and, as yet, unspecified mortgage recording and property tax breaks. The facility would employ 67 with housing for 60 to 70 workers. The project costs include $22.9 million for construction, $1.53 million for machinery, $375,000 for design and planning, $225,000 for training, and $150,000 in furniture and equipment. Other financing includes 2 mortgages from Eden Valley Farm and Nobles Farms, and a line of credit through Farm Credit East. The IDA approved a preliminary resolution on April 28th, but will make a final decision later this month. If approved, the project is expected to be finished by mid-2028. Separately, the agency also agreed to grant leeway to owners of Wicked Jimmy LLC, a new modern craft brewery with a restaurant and banquet facility in the former Jamestown Brewing Company building located on 0.58 acres at 115 to 121 West 3rd Street. Robert Roth, who operates the popular Wicked Warrens in Warren, Pennsylvania, bought the 33,900 square foot building and obtained both tax breaks and a $950,000 low-interest loan from CCIDA to support the $2.35 million project, which includes construction of a 700 square foot addition for decks and rooftop space. A payment in lieu of taxes arrangement was approved in 2023, calling for equal annual payments of $44,682 over 10 years, a total of $446,820. But after making the first payment, Roth asked for the agency to change the payment schedule by reducing the next three amounts to as low as $11,170 while backloading the differences in the final three payments to as much as $78,193. The final total payment does not change. And finally, the agency approved a $150,000 loan for machinery and working capital to 137 Water Street Brewing LLC, a small-scale craft brewery that will operate a 7-barrel brewing system to produce about 364 barrels annually, with the ability to scale output as demand increases. All beer will be brewed, fermented, packaged, and labeled on site. The $710,000 project will also include a tap room with food service and a seasonal outdoor venue. That'll be another place to go in the warm weather.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to brew.
If you want. As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you have any questions about any of the names, want any further information, give us a call at 716-821-5555. Bentley Carol E. from Buffalo, age 4, sorry, she was from Lockport, age 82. Raymond Brigman of Buffalo, West Seneca, somewhere around there,
Someplace.
died a couple days ago at age 91. Jardine Janet Campbell, she passed into eternity, it says here, on April 27th at age 85 in Redlands, California. She was from Buffalo originally and graduated from the same high school I did, Riverside. Linda Young, Linda A. of Sloan. Doesn't tell us when she was born, but she died earlier this week. Lenihan David E., age 90, of Ashland. Let's see. Lepsch Robert A. from Batavia, died at age 75 back in February, and they're just now reporting it here. Ostrowski Linda L. She was from Amherst and died at 77 just a couple days ago. Pope Robert G. He was about to turn 90, and he passed away in March. It doesn't tell us anything about where he was from. Roberto Jennifer Joan. Again, it doesn't tell us where she was from, but she's going to be buried from St. Timothy's Church in Tonawanda. She was, let's see, I forgot to do the math here. She was just 75. Stang Jr., Edward, he was from West Seneca, and he died the other day at age 92. And Walter Mary M., a devoted wife, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, born in Buffalo in 1937, and she passed away 2 days ago at age 92. And that's all we have on the death listings today. No obituaries of any sort, either nationally or otherwise. So we're just going to remind you, if you have a need for further information on any of those names, give us a call at 716-821-5555.
We move on to some entertainment from the Royal Stars. Georgia Nichols. Happy birthday for Friday, May 8th of 2026. You're determined and tenacious. You have strong convictions and a sense of fair play. This year's exciting changes will bring you increased personal freedom. Stay flexible. Let go of whatever impedes your progress. The stars show the kind of day you'll have. 5 is dynamic, 4 positive, 3 average, 2 so-so, and 1 difficult. And we're kind of on the medium to large range, so we'll be getting positive to averages here. Aries being 4 stars. This is a particularly good day to make long-range plans for the future. Relations with friends and interactions with groups and organizations will be successful tonight. Friendships. Taurus at 3 stars. People respect your ideas today because they're original, innovative, and yet at the same time practical and doable. Tonight, you're admired. Gemini's 4 stars. Be open to new and unusual ideas related to medicine, the law, politics, and the possibility of future travel because anything is possible today. Tonight, explore and learn. Cancer, 3 stars. Discussions about shared property, banking, taxes, and debt will go well today. However, something out of the blue or hidden might surprise you. Tonight, check your finances. Leo, 4 stars. You're ready to compromise with others today because the moon is opposite your sign tonight. Listen and cooperate. Virgo, 3 stars. This is an industrious day for you. Roll up your sleeves and get ready to accomplish a lot. You have the energy and know-how as well as the imagination to go after what you want tonight. Work. Libra, 4 stars. This is an exciting, playful, creative day. Nevertheless, parents should be vigilant because this is also a mildly accident-prone day for your kids. Tonight, play. That sounds like fun. Scorpio, 3 stars. Home and family are your focus today. You might be involved with a female relative more than usual. Someone older may have advice for you. Tonight, relax. Sagittarius, 4 stars. Short trips and conversations with others will please you today because you're full of ideas and energy. Tonight, an interesting discussion. Capricorn, 3 stars. Today you might find money or you might lose money. Be smart and protect what you own against loss, theft, or damage. Tonight, maintain your belongings. Well, Aquarius, 4 stars. This is an exciting day full of high energy for you. You have innovative ideas, but at the same time, you're grounded when it comes to translating those ideas. Tonight, you win. And Pisces, 3 stars. You're high energy, which is why short trips and opportunities to talk to others will please you. Tonight, something going on behind the scenes might make you feel restless. Tonight, enjoy privacy. And today in history, 1541, on this date, during his party's long and far-ranging exploration of North America, Spanish conquistador Hernando de Soto reached the Mississippi River. He's credited as the first European to document the river. And in 1886, Coca-Cola first went on sale at Jacobs Pharmacy in Atlanta for 5 cents per glass. Wow, prices must have been way lower then. 1902, a pyroclastic surge from the eruption of Mount Pelée on the Caribbean island of Martinique buried the city of Saint Pierre, killing thousands. In 1945, Allied forces celebrated VE Day for victory in Europe during World War II after Germany's unconditional surrender. In 1950, Jackie Robinson became the first black person to be featured on the cover of Life magazine. In 1970, President Richard Nixon held a news conference to defend the invasion of Cambodia by American and South Vietnamese forces. Nixon argued that the invasion would shorten the Vietnam War. Well, 1973, members of the American Indian Movement ended their occupation of Wounded Knee on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. During the 71-day occupation, 2 men were shot and killed by federal agents, and several others were injured. Finally, 1999, Nancy Mace became the first woman to graduate from the Citadel Military College.
Well, we have a few minutes left in this hour. I'm going to grab an article that we had to scratch out of the first quarter hour because we ran out of time. This is from Andrew Chung of Reuters. U.S. Chief Justice John Roberts expressed concern on Wednesday about the public perception of the Supreme Court as an institution driven primarily by political outcomes rather than the law, at a time when some prominent voices have raised questions about the top U.S. judicial body's legitimacy. Roberts, who has led the court since 2005, appeared to acknowledge dimming public approval of the court, shown in opinion polls over the last few years, as its conservative majority continues to push American law dramatically rightward. At a very basic level, people think we're making policy decisions, Roberts told an audience of judges, attorneys, and law students in Hershey, Pennsylvania. I think they view us as purely political actors, which I don't think is an accurate understanding of what we do, Roberts said. Roberts, appointed as Chief Justice by Republican former President George W. Bush, is seen as deeply conservative, but also concerned about the court's institutional credibility and public perception. Its current 6-3 conservative majority was established in 2020 when President Trump made a third appointment of a justice to a lifetime position on the bench. Since then, it has delivered landmark rulings rolling back abortion rights and race-conscious affirmative action practices, expanding gun rights, expanding religious rights, limiting transgender rights, and restricting federal regulatory power. In another landmark ruling last week, it gutted a key provision of the Voting Rights Act, making it harder for minorities to challenge electoral maps as racially discriminatory under the civil rights law. The ruling was a victory for Louisiana Republicans and Trump's administration. A ruling authored by Roberts in 2024 granted Trump broad immunity from criminal prosecution over his efforts to undo his 2020 election loss to Democrat Joe Biden, bolstering his bid to regain the presidency by effectively delaying a trial that ultimately never took place. Since Trump returned to the presidency last year, the court has repeatedly taken emergency actions to let his far-reaching executive actions take effect pending legal challenges. In one setback for Trump, the court, in another ruling authored by Roberts in February, struck down Trump's signature global tariffs issued under a law meant for use in national emergencies. Interviewed on stage by a federal judge on Wednesday, Roberts was asked how the court is misunderstood. Roberts said that the justices are not simply part of the political process, adding, "I'm not sure that people grasp that as much as is appropriate." In 2022, Elena Kagan, one of the court's 3 liberal members, said its legitimacy could be imperiled if Americans come to view the justices as trying to impose political preferences on society. Kagan said that a court is legitimate when it's acting like a court, by respecting past precedents and not asserting authority to make political or policy decisions. When courts become extensions of the political process, when people see them as extensions of the political process, once people see them as trying just to impose personal preferences on a society, irrespective of the law, that's when there's a problem, Kagan said. Biden, whose administration was on the losing side of some key Supreme Court rulings in 2024, proposed sweeping changes for the court, including term limits of 18 years for the justices and a binding code of conduct. "We need these reforms to restore trust in the court," Biden said, adding that it has been weaponized by those seeking to carry out an extreme agenda for decades to come. Amid Republican opposition, Biden's proposals went nowhere in Congress. Other Democrats and some legal scholars have indicated similar concerns. Referring to the conservative justices, Senator Edward Markey in 2024 criticized the illegitimate extremist U.S. Supreme Court majority. Roberts on Wednesday repeated his concerns about personal attacks and hostility toward judges. Criticism of rulings is legitimate, Roberts said, but criticism of the judges themselves is not. As soon as that happens, that's not appropriate and can lead to very serious problems, Roberts said. Roberts did not name Trump, who has launched verbal attacks on the judiciary after rulings impeding his agenda. The Supreme Court repeatedly has been called upon to rule in cases involving Trump's expansive view of presidential powers. It is expected by the end of June to rule in more major cases involving Trump, including his efforts to fire Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook and restrict birthright citizenship. Trump condemned Roberts and the 5 other justices who ruled against him on tariffs and made an unsubstantiated claim that the court was swayed by foreign interests. Trump called out 2 of the 3 conservative justices he appointed during his first term in office, Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett, calling the decision an embarrassment to their families. You're listening to a reading of articles in the Buffalo News for today, Friday, May 8th. It's 28 minutes past the hour. No,
it's not.
58 minutes past the hour. So we're going to take a short break, and your readers are
J.J. Patek
and Don Williams.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Don Williams.
and JJ Patek, and we will now move on to city and region news. And the city, restarts abandonment efforts against the Buffalo Grand. That's the Buffalo Grand Hotel. This is from Jonathan D. Epstein. City officials have restarted their legal effort to have the Buffalo Grand Hotel declared as an abandoned property that the city should take over. The move comes after a last-ditch effort by owner Harry Stinson to bring in a new partner, and new financing fell through at the end of last week, just as it was about to be formally announced. Stinson was facing down a deadline last Wednesday at the end of a 90-day grace period to show the city that he could finance the redevelopment and get the 486-room hotel reopened. Originally built in 1978 as a Buffalo Hilton and later renamed Adams Mark, the city's largest hotel was being renovated by Stinson but had been closed since the pandemic in a devastating blaze in December of 2021 that caused $50 million in damage. The developer spent 3 years fighting with the insurer, which paid only $25 million in reimbursement and has been unable to line up more for financing since then. Meanwhile, the building's been vacant. Under former Mayor Christopher Scanlon, the city last fall had initiated a process under the state law to take control of the vacant hotel at 120 Church Street, but new Mayor Sean Ryan put that on hold at the end of January after pleas from Stinson. On the last day, the developer unveiled a plan for a group of new investors to join him as partners through a self-described Tampa-based investment advisor to entertainers whose brother is a contractor at the hotel. But the deal collapsed just 14 hours before a news conference on Friday after investors balked at the terms and demanded a supermajority ownership of 75%. Stinson did not respond to a request for comment. And Deputy Mayor Thomas Raines said he met with Stinson on Monday just to get his point of view, what happened with the deal, and to determine what would happen next. I wanted to confirm that it is off the table, and it is off the table, Bain said. He acknowledged that Stinson had fulfilled other terms of the agreement by keeping the city apprised every 30 days, but, he said, he told Stinson that at this point we were anticipating proceeding with the appropriate legal action and subsequently met with the city's legal team to map out what that would look like. We're moving forward, Bain said. It's not a situation where we're waiting for something. We're putting the steps together to actively pursue getting this building back in working order. However, that also doesn't mean the city will take possession immediately or that Stinson has lost out. Like eminent domain or even foreclosure, abandonment proceedings must work through courts, which could take a year or more. And since the effort was started before the Ryan administration took office, Bain said officials are going through very meticulously to figure out which way is the most appropriate to proceed. In the meantime, Bain said Stinson told him he's still going to be aggressive about trying to find an investor or other deal to stave off the city's action. And Bain said he encouraged him to do so. The city doesn't want to own the hotel. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose is to get this back online, he said. I believe he thinks and feels the same way. That feeling is mutual. But there's no guarantee that it will be successful or even acceptable, as the city would be remiss not to look at it and analyze the validity. We just have to make sure that, as a city, we don't allow it to remain vacant and deteriorating for another 2 or 3 years or however long it takes, Baines said. So,
From John Harris, news staff reporter, we hear that longtime U.S. Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz clearly remembers the moment around 18 years ago when she heard the devastating words, "You have cancer." She was 41, the mother of 3 young children, and she felt crushed by the breast cancer diagnosis. But she battled and survived. In the years since, Wasserman Schultz, a Florida Democrat and former chair of the Democratic National Committee, has kept pushing for more cancer education, awareness, and early detection. Her latest efforts brought her to Buffalo on yesterday, to visit Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center, where she touted the potential benefits of 3 bills she's sponsoring that she said would bolster cancer care at each stage of a patient's journey. Those bills would help identify hereditary gene mutations in at-risk individuals, expand access to early screenings and risk-reducing surgeries, and address the health challenges that survivors face. Wasserman Schultz came here at the invitation of U.S. Representative Tim Kennedy, a Democrat from Buffalo. The duo started the day at the Niagara Falls Air Reserve Station and then toured Roswell Park before a news conference at the Cancer Center's Community Outreach and Engagement Center on Michigan Avenue. Afterward, Wasserman Schultz, who serves on the House Committee on Appropriations, joined Kennedy on a visit to the Buffalo VA Medical Center. At Roswell Park, which has made its own strides in the early detection of cancer as well as survivorship programs, Wasserman Schultz explained the three bills she's pushing: the Laney Jones Comprehensive Cancer Survivorship Act, the Reducing Hereditary Cancer Act, and the Early Reauthorization Act. The Laney Jones Comprehensive Cancer Survivorship Act would overhaul cancer survivorship care by mandating Medicare to cover personalized survivorship plans and requiring Medicaid to cover fertility preservation services for women at risk of infertility from cancer treatments. The bill would also create a Medicaid benefit to help childhood and adolescent cancer survivors transition out of cancer care and into primary care, and establish a grant program to assist cancer survivors facing employment barriers. The act is named for Laney Jones, an early cancer detection advocate who was known on social media as the Early Detective. Jones died in October at the age of 41. She was from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and had survived many types of cancer, including her first battle when she was only 18 months old.
Wow.
The Laney Jones bill, which Wasserman Schultz called the mother of all cancer bills, also would establish a national Office of Cancer Survivorship. When you're done with all your treatment, with all the surgeries, when you're ready to move on, you ring the bell and you take the next step. It is literally like being thrown into the wilderness, Wasserman Schultz said. Who you go to and talk to, what are the associated issues that you're going to have to deal with, what is the likelihood of, recurrence, what are life-saving choices that need to be made here. There's no real map, no roadmap. The Reducing Hereditary Cancer Act aims to address gaps in Medicare coverage so people at high risk of cancer have access to services. Under current law, Medicare covers genetic testing only for beneficiaries already diagnosed with cancer, regardless of family cancer history or known genetic mutations in the family. The bill would provide Medicare coverage for germline mutation testing for those with a personal or family history of a hereditary cancer gene mutation or suspected history of hereditary cancer. After Wasserman Schultz announced her battle with breast cancer in 2009, she introduced the Breast Cancer Education and Awareness Requires Learning Young, the abbreviated EARLY Act. It became law as part of the Affordable Care Act in 2010 and launched a national education campaign focused on young women, ages 15 to 44, to raise awareness of breast health, risk factors, and early detection. The authorization for the law expired at the end of 2025, so the Early Reauthorization Act would renew programs under the law through 2031. Of the bills, Wasserman Schultz said the reauthorization of the Early Act is in the strongest position to pass. The Reducing Hereditary Cancer Act will be more challenging, she said, because it will require Medicare to cover additional services, so she will need to convince her Republican counterparts that the fiscal impact isn't as large as they believe. Meanwhile, Wasserman Schultz will attempt to get smaller pieces of the Laney Jones Comprehensive Cancer Survivorship Act moved separately and then through the appropriations process. That is a very robust legislation that would be groundbreaking, landmark legislation, she said, so I'm in the process of breaking it up into smaller parts. Roswell Park President and CEO Candace Johnson said the Cancer Center supports the package of bills that addresses the needs of these cancer patients at every stage of their experience. At the event, Johnson also introduced two breast cancer survivors to speak. Sharon Sanford, a Senior Associate Director of Athletics at the University at Buffalo and founder of Sadie Strong, and Annette Colden, founder of We Are As One, Inc. Sanford explained that she was diagnosed with what's known as stage 2B triple-negative breast cancer, which was found to have spread to her lymph nodes after a routine mammogram. When she was diagnosed, she didn't know what to do and felt she was going into the experience blind. But 1 year after her diagnosis, she decided to start Sadie Strong, a nonprofit that promotes the early detection of breast cancer and inspires healthy lifestyles for women in underserved communities. Roswell Park has been a close partner of the nonprofit, she said, and she applauded the work being done by the Cancer Center and lawmakers such as Wasserman Schultz in expanding education and access. We are shaping the access, the resources, the realities that tomorrow's cancer patients will confront, Sanford said, and we are paving a way for more cancer victories, more people getting back to their lives and moving forward with good health and positivity.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah, and I look outside and see the sun is shining.
Wow.
Well, from Sandra Tan, officials says push to cut gas tax likely won't reduce price. Erie County legislators on Thursday did what everyone else is doing, talked about the skyrocketing cost of gasoline. This discussion led to a debate about reducing county taxes on gas, but finding a gallon for under $3, it's $4, more likely than the idea gaining traction. Under the proposal, the county sales tax would apply only to the first $2 of every gallon of gas or diesel fuel purchased at gas pumps in the county. Should pump prices continue to rise, the amount the county could tax each gallon would be capped. But County Budget Director Mark Cornell argued that there is no data to support the belief that if the county were to limit sales tax collection on gas and diesel, that consumers would see any savings at all. He referred to weekly gas price data for the Buffalo metro area collected by the state, showing that the last two times the county implemented a gas tax cap, which spanned 18 months from 2022 to early 2024, evidence did not show that the gas prices came down. He compared the cost of gas in Buffalo area to the Rochester area, which offered no sales tax exemption on gas during the same period, and said there was no obvious difference in price beyond a roughly 5-cent difference that has always existed between the two cities regardless of policy. There was no benefit to consumers when the exemption went into effect, he said, and there was no cost to the consumers when the exemptions went out of effect. There was zero impact. The gas tax cut proposal was promoted by the Republican legislators who said that the county should take action to try to alleviate the burden on consumers. Legislator Lindsay Larigo, a Republican from West Seneca, questioned the accuracy of Cornell's data, and Legislator Chris Green, a Republican from Clarence, pointed out that when Canada instituted a gas tax holiday in effect from April 20 through September 7th of this year, gas prices fell considerably. Cornell said he could only speak to the data in New York, which indicated no average savings at all to county consumers when the gas cap was in place in parts of 2022 and 2023 through early 2024. The first time county officials capped sales tax collection on gas, they estimated that consumers would save roughly 11 cents per gallon. That did not come to pass. The idea of relieving consumer gas expenses with some type of gas tax limitation or elimination is not new. Some elected state leaders, including State Senator Jeremy Zellner, have supported an effort to hold a temporary gas and diesel tax holiday. However, Governor Kathy Hochul expressed skepticism that consumers would see any relief. Cornell noted that gas retailers pay for sales tax on their gas in bulk at the time of purchase. Whether they choose to cut their prices to consumer based on the county's sales tax cap is up to retailers, but no evidence has surfaced showing that any did on a widespread basis. Carl Hasselbeck, owner of the Jim's Truck Stop on Walden Avenue across from Walden Galleria, urged legislators to adopt the gas tax cap proposal, arguing that sales tax on gas disproportionately hurts those who earn less and is inherently unfair. He similarly pushed for the gas tax cap in prior years, saying that for most people, gas is as necessary expense as food, clothing, and shelter. Cornell said there may be many reasons why prior gas tax caps have not worked in Erie County. It's possible the gas retailers are simply taking the extra profits, you think. But more likely, he said, gas pricing is dependent on many variables, of which the county taxes is one small part. Larigo challenged Cornell, saying that the county should care more about helping out consumers and making other choices to ease their cost burdens. It's a question of priority, she said. Oh, I agree, said Cornell. I just think it's a bad priority to choose to forego sales tax revenue without any benefit associated with it. He compared the push for a gas tax cap to the legislature's past exemption on home heating fuel in the winter. That exemption, which Cornell said placed a greater burden on the county budget because of the lost revenue, still showed a quantifiable saving on heating bills. He said the same cannot be said of past gas tax exemptions, and he challenged other legislators to provide any evidence that it did. He also pointed out that a portion of the county's sales tax revenue is shared with other local governments, so any loss of sales revenue means less revenue to other municipalities. We would be purportedly hurting every town, village, and school district in terms of sales tax, so we can have a press release that says, "I'm fighting for the consumers," he argued. While there has been bipartisan support in the past by a county legislature for a gas tax cap to save consumers money, in light of Cornell's argument, it appears far less likely this time around that most Democrats would support the gas tax cap. Since Democrats currently hold a 7-4 majority, the proposal to limit the gas tax on consumers seems less likely to go anywhere. Maybe they ought to investigate why prices don't go down. Got to be a reason.
I guess.
Slap me for making sense.
Summarizing this next article from Justin Sondel, the Buffalo Police Department's new commissioner, Erica Shields, has had a busy first week on the job. At her first meeting with the press since taking the oath of office Monday, Shields said she has met with department leadership, union leaders, and rank-and-file officers after spending most of her time in Buffalo interacting with community groups prior to being confirmed last week. Today's a fantastic day because when I came in here, I saw there was an abundance of talent within the agency and there are leaders in the community, and it made my job much easier in compiling a leadership team, she said. Staying on with her will be Craig Macy, the former chief of detectives who served as interim commissioner while Mayor Sean Ryan's administration conducted the national search that resulted in Shields' hiring. Macy will be the department's deputy commissioner of operations and Shields' second in command. In addition, she has named Thelma Jones, deputy commissioner of administration. Jones has been a chief of C District since 2023. The department restructured its organizational chart last month, moving some units into spots under new leadership. So I'm sure we'll be hearing more about this in the coming days and weeks as we have this new commissioner on board.
Well, let's just hope things go well.
Yes.
Well, you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service, and it is 17 minutes past the hour. And we move on to sports. Yay! Hey, the Sabres are doing really well, and I'm still reading articles about that wonderful time we sang the Canadian national anthem and impressed the Canadians. Greenway's best game helps the Sabres to hold off the Canadians, and this is from Lance Legowski's, and it says, "Good game, great win." You know which players the Montreal Canadiens focused on during their meetings leading up to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Tage Thompson, Rasmus Dahlin, Alex Tuch, Josh Doan, Zach Benson. Unless the Canadiens discuss the Sabres penalty killers, it's unlikely Jordan Greenway's name came up. The 6'6" winger had not scored a goal since November 11th. His last goal in the playoffs was 4 years ago with Minnesota Wild. Wow. He's a hard-nosed physical player who crushes opponents into the boards and wins more puck battles than he loses, but he's not known for his offense yet. 3 minutes, 32 seconds into the second period of Game 1 inside KeyBank Center, Greenway became the latest unlikely hero during the Sabres' remarkable run from last place in the Eastern Conference to 3 wins away from the conference final. Greenway's shot leaked off Canadiens goalie Jacob Dob's glove on Wednesday night to help the Sabres pull away with a 4-2 victory and a 1-0 series lead. When Greenway saw the puck hit the back of the net, he raised his arms and skated toward the glass. The goal put Buffalo ahead 3-1, abruptly stopping the momentum Montreal created with Nick Suzuki's power play goal late in the first period. Everybody on the Sabres bench was elated. They knew about the frustrating moments Greenway had experienced during the agonizing recovery. "It's always great to score," he said. "Second round of the playoffs. I didn't know what the score was at that point. It's been a journey, of course, injury-wise, but there are a lot of guys who have gone through injuries. It's behind me. I'm just focused on going out there and doing what I can do to help the team." The goal will be viewed as much more than a blunder by Dobes and an impressive play by Greenway, but there's more that went into the play than a flub shot. Sabres' fourth-line center Tyson Kozak, who had played just 19 games in 16 months when Buffalo selected the small-town Manitoba kid in the 7th round of the 2021 draft, drove to the net as Greenway carried the puck near the top of the left circle. Kozak's decision forced the Canadiens' defenseman, Alexandre Carrier, to follow him to the net. Carrier didn't know, but he inadvertently screened his goalie. By the time Dobes saw the puck, it was too late. It's a type of ugly goal you need to score to have success in the playoffs. Okay, I got to try and read without that big smile on my face.
Good luck.
And if a team is to survive and advance, it must receive contributions throughout the lineup. Lindy Ruff predicted an unlikely hero would emerge during the first round. Several contributed to the Sabres dispatching the Bruins in 6 games. Greenway had 5 hits Tuesday in 13 minutes, .03 of ice time. Buffalo had 5 high danger scoring chances when his line with Kozak and Beck Mellanston was on the ice, according to a natural stat trick. 18 months ago, Greenway would not have been an unlikely source. He'd never been much of a goal scorer. The 10 that he gave the Sabres in the 2023-24 were tied for the second most in his career. But Greenway quickly became one of Ruff's favorite in the fall of 2024 because he did everything the coach asked. He forechecked hard. He never backed down in scrums. He out-muscled opponents in front of the net. Ruff was so excited about Greenway's potential in the Sabres lineup that he pulled out his cell phone to show NHL Network broadcasters a few clips of the power forward as the team prepared to open its season in Prague in October of 2024. Injuries got in the way of Ruff's plan for Greenway, though. He played 34 games in 2024-25, but the Sabres saw enough to give him a 2-year contract extension. Greenway was one of the first veteran players former general manager Kevin Adams acquired to complement the speed and skill on his roster. The trade in March of 2023 was criticized by some of the time because Greenway was dealing with a shoulder injury, and the cost, including his second-round pick, was significant relative to his production offensively. The Sabres had plenty of offense, though. They wanted a forward with size and playoff experience. Don Granato, their coach at the time, knew Greenway from their time at the USA National Team Development Program. Off the ice, Greenway emerged as one of the Sabres' quiet leaders in the dressing room. Fourth-line players like Greenway don't see as much ice time in the playoffs. He averaged 11 minutes 9 seconds in the first round series. It wasn't for lack of trust. The Sabres prioritized ice time for the more skilled players because offense was difficult to create against the Bruins. On the penalty kill, he helped Buffalo hold Boston to 2 power play goals. If the Canadiens forgot about Greenway, he put them on notice early Wednesday night. I thought by far his best game, Ruff said of Greenway. Great on the walls, really strong on the puck. His physicality was good. The goal, a great shot through the defenseman, but I think the 10-foot range to the walls, the puck battles, he was excellent. Canadian center Philip Danault went down hard when Greenway lowered his left shoulder and took the puck to help the Sabres exit their zone. Later in the first period, he leveled Canadian center Kirby Dach in the end boards. Jake Evans crumbled when Greenway drove his right shoulder into the center. The Canadiens are not going to rely on physicality and intimidation to try to win the series, but the Sabres still need to wear them down on the forecheck. The list of Sabres standouts through 7 playoff games is long. Tuch had 4 goals in the first round. Bowen Byram's 4th goal of the playoffs Wednesday night tied Mike Ramsey in the 1982-83 season, and Jason Woolley from 1998-99 and Alexei Zhitnik at 98-99 for the most by a defenseman in any playoff year. Ryan McLeod scored his first goal of the playoffs, while Doan and Benson had 2 points apiece in the first period. Greenway's performance is the latest reminder of how much the Sabres' depth has improved since his team began its journey from the youngest team in the National Hockey League with no playoff experience to a contender. He's been awesome for us all year when he's been healthy, Doan said of Greenway. Obviously, it's been a hard year with that, so tonight was awesome for him to go down the score sheet. And I think we can expect a little more of that from the big boy. Yeah, 6'6", you think?
Yeah.
But it's like driving into a wall of bricks.
Well, Rachel Lindsay has some nice news for us. Rasmus Dahlin looks in retrospect at how his childhood of playing hockey in Sweden helped shape him into an NHL defenseman. Do whatever it takes to win. Be tough. Be hard to play against as an athlete. Compete. That's how I grew up, Dahlin, the Buffalo Sabres captain, said. My buddies from back home are kind of the same way. We had that culture growing up. He also considers how a turbulent season filled with athletic success and personal tribulation helped forge him into one of the NHL's best defensemen. In the top three, as a matter of fact, Dahlin is one of 3 finalists for the James Norris Trophy, given annually to the NHL's top defenseman. He's the first Sabres finalist for the award since Jim Schoenfeld in the 1979-80 season and is in line to become the first Norris Trophy winner in franchise history. The league announced the finalists for the award yesterday. Colorado's Cale Makar, who won the Norris Trophy for the 2024-25 season, and Columbus' Zach Werenski were also named as the top candidates for the award. The winner will be announced in June. It means a lot, says Dahlin, who is also a finalist for the Bill Masterton Memorial Trophy for perseverance, sportsmanship, and dedication to hockey. I've been grinding for a lot of years, and finally this team has success. And when the team is having success, you usually get individual success too, so it's unreal. Dahlin had 19 goals and 55 assists for a career-high 74 points for the Sabres in the regular season, while posting a career-best plus 18 rating in 77 games. He has captained the team to its first berth in the Stanley Cup playoffs since 2011, and the Sabres' second-round series against the Montreal Canadiens continues tonight at 7 p.m. in KeyBank Center. Dahlin's inclusion among the 3 Norris Trophy finalists comes less than a year after he finished 6th in the balloting for the award. He was 8th in 2022-23. Sabres coach Lindy Ruff identified the qualities that made Dahlin not just a top-caliber defenseman, but also a magnanimous leader. Leading by example, Ruff said, playing the game the right way, being that guy who was the captain for every guy in the room. The best captains are the captains for everybody, not just the guys who are struggling or your friends or your countrymen. It's a captain for everybody, and I just feel he is a guy that cares about everybody. He's not just a captain for his fellow defensemen. He's there for everyone. That's the most important thing. Sabres goalie Alex Lyon joined the team in the summer as a free agent signing after spending the last 2 seasons with the Detroit Red Wings and quickly learned of Dahlin's nature as a teammate and leader. The really big dogs on the team, you get there, and you're like, well, this guy is way better than I even imagined. And that's definitely happened with Dallas this year, Lyon said. I knew playing against him and his pedigree, but you get into practice and in the room with him, and it just blows you away how talented some of those guys are. Massive credit to him. The Norris Trophy nomination is the latest touchstone in a season of highs and lows for the 26-year-old. His story this season isn't just about his proficiency on the ice. He's continued his pace as one of the NHL's top-performing defensemen as his fiancée, Caroline Matovac, continues to recover from a heart transplant last summer. Dahlin revealed Matovac's heart transplant at training camp in September, which came after she had heart failure during a summer vacation in France and was placed on life support before receiving a new heart. Quite a story there. And that accounts for the difference between the 82-game season and the 77 games that he played. He missed 5 of them while he was out of town looking after his fiancée. So, you know, if anything, this season and the past year have helped firm his already strong grasp on his priorities. You grow, Dahlin said. You get older. You kind of understand that things outside hockey are more important. That made me more relaxed, doing the work, in peace, if that makes sense, knowing hockey's just a game. I had to understand that. Quite a guy.
Bill's rookie minicamp is ready to get started. This is from Catherine Fitzgerald, and those welcome to the NFL moments are inching closer to the Buffalo Bills rookies. Bills have rookie minicamp scheduled for Friday and Saturday. It'll be a strong opportunity for the 2026 10 pickup draft class. A slew of undrafted rookie free agents and tryouts invitees to show what they bring on the field, and don't count anyone out regardless of how they found their way to Orchard Park. The Bills are extremely aware that roster spots are earned. Just take a look at Buffalo Joe. Linebacker Joe Andresen was at one of the 26 tryout players at the 2024 rookie minicamp. He latched down with the Bills, and he's been playing for his hometown franchise since. Over 2 seasons, the Western New York native and University of Buffalo product has played 30 games for the Bills. While the bulk of his work has been on special teams, Andresen has played 210 defensive snaps. His storybook journey for the NFL started with the team giving him a chance at rookie minicamp. I believed I could play in the league, Andresen said last summer, reflecting on his 2024 camp. I guess part of it, too, is when you come in and you don't know. I came in, I'd never played against NFL speed, NFL linemen, stuff like that, so I guess a lot of that is a trial and tribulations thing, but once you start getting some of the reps in, you kind of see that I could play here. And even when he wasn't on the field, Andresen was absorbing as much as he could. An important example for this year's batch of trial players, you want to take those mental rips as much as you can. Even if you're on the sideline, Andresen said. The Bills are likely to announce a list of tryout players on Friday, and the Buffalo News has been tracking reported undrafted free agents with whom the team has agreed to terms, as the Bills do not officially announce UDFAs until they pass physicals before the rookie minicamp. The 2026 draft class is made up of outside linebacker T.J. Parker, cornerback Davison Igbinosun, offensive tackle Jude Bowery, wide receiver Skylar Bell, linebacker Caleb Elamzor, safety Jason Kilgore, defensive tackle Zane Durant, cornerback Toriano Pride, punter Tommy Doman Jr., and guard Armaj Reed Adams. And general manager Brandon Beane and head coach Joe Brady know there's more evaluating to be done on the group. Beane said after the draft that his goal was to get the team younger, and this fresh wave of players can help. And mandatory minicamp for the team is June 9th through 11th. Under previous head coach Sean McDermott, the Bills, along with many other teams, often would break camp a day early. It remains to be seen if Brady will want to take full advantage of the time as he installs new systems. So, we'll see.
We need to take a moment to recognize that the NBA is in playoff
Yes.
part of their season, even though the Buffalo Sabres or Buffalo Braves are long gone. Late surge leads Knicks past 76ers. In Game 2, the New York Knicks took control of their Eastern Conference semifinal, so now they're leading 2-0 after a 108-102 win in Game 2, and Game 3 is scheduled for tonight in Philadelphia. Meanwhile, Victor Wembanyama scored 19 points and grabbed 15 rebounds as the host San Antonio Spurs dominated the final three quarters on their way to a 133-95 victory over the Minnesota Timberwolves, evening that Western Conference semifinal series at one win apiece. Game 3 of the best-of-7 series is scheduled for tonight in Minneapolis. So, NBA playoffs move along.
Well, you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. It's 33 minutes past the hour, and let's move on to advice from our Eric Thomas. Husband's downward spiral puts him and others at risk. Dear Eric, I've been married for 20 years. My husband has been on a downward spiral for the last 5 years. He bought a motorcycle at that time, and since then he goes out every weekend bar hopping and comes home totally drunk. We haven't had sex in 9 months, and I've begged him. He refuses to go to marriage counseling or a therapist for himself. I'm terrified he'll get in an accident or get arrested. I'm financially unable to leave him, and I'm ready to hide his motorcycle keys, and I don't know what else to do. He has no family or friends aside from his drinking buddies. I read your column every day, and I believe you give sound, thoughtful advice. And it's signed, Desperate Wife. Dear wife, if your husband is driving his motorcycle drunk or tipsy, he's posing a threat to himself and others, and someone needs to intervene. Since he won't listen to you, I strongly encourage you to contact your local Department of Motor Vehicles and submit a complaint about this pattern of behavior. Many, if not most, departments of motor vehicles will allow you to make an anonymous report if you suspect a driver is unfit for various reasons. The DMV will then investigate, which can provide you with some of the support you need without making you solely responsible for corralling his behavior. If he's going out tonight, this week, this month, or coming back drunk, you need to contact the police. I know that you fear he'll get arrested, but as a consequence, he'll be bringing on himself, and in the balance, it's far better consequence than having him get injured or killed or causing someone else's death. It's very possible there's something else happening here. It's not clear from your letter whether you're struggling with alcoholism or if there's another mental or medical issue or both. However, there is help available. Talk to your primary care physician about what you're seeing and experience, or reach out to your local Department of Aging if your husband is a senior. They can connect you with a social worker or other professionals who can evaluate your husband's behavior and offer remedies. And additionally, please take steps to protect yourself. Talk to a financial advisor or even a divorce lawyer about what guardrails you can put in place for your safety and security. That's a tough one. Dear Eric, I'm a 17-year-old student from India. I've been struggling with my student studies for a long time, and I do not feel confident or interested in the traditional school system. Honestly, I feel like I'm not good at studies, and continuing school sometimes feels like a waste of my time and my family's money. I don't believe in the idea of working a 9-to-5 job for my whole life, sitting in an office and working for a limited income. I have bigger ambitions, and I want to become rich and achieve something significant in life. I don't feel the traditional path will help me reach that goal. At the same time, I strongly believe in myself and my dreams. I feel confident that if I fully focus on what I truly want to do, I can achieve success. However, I'm also confused and worried about whether leaving my studies would be the right decision or not. Should I continue my studies while working on my dreams, or should I take the risk and fully pursue what I believe in? As signed, Struggling Student. And he answers, Dear student, non-traditional paths don't always have to completely reject tradition. Indeed, there's an adage that says you have to know the rules to break them. And because you're at the beginning of your journey, and I know it doesn't feel like the beginning, it's wise to operate in two lanes at once for a bit until you see a clear next step. The next step is so important. Enthusiasm and determination will get you far, but planning and strategy will help you maintain a successful career. Sometimes being in a place that's not a great fit gives us good information about what we need to thrive. Don't be afraid to talk to teachers, family members, and mentors about what's not working for you at school. At the same time, study people who are in the industry into which you want to go. It's about more than getting rich. It's about building something that will sustain you and keep challenging you. Be rigorous about learning the steps they took to get where they are. This will help you plot your own path. There is risk involved in everything, but you can mitigate some of that risk by treating your dreams as if they are the course of study that you're determined to get an A in. And that's advice from Eric today.
Always practical.
And I'm thinking he's only 17. They think they know everything at 17 because I know I did. And then I found out, boy, I didn't know anything.
I've spent close to half my life so far with students right around age 17. I know the story.
Yeah.
From Bloomberg News, Salma El-Wardani, Dan Williams, no relation, and Patrick Sykes report a shaky ceasefire held in the Gulf on yesterday as the United States waited Iran's response to a U.S. proposal that would stop the fighting but leave the most contentious issues, such as Iran's nuclear program, unresolved for now. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson said Tehran had not yet reached a conclusion on the emerging plan, which, according to sources and officials, centers on a short-term memorandum rather than a comprehensive peace deal, underscoring deep divisions between the two sides. However, in a statement carried on Iran state media, the industry spokesperson Esmail Baghai said later, for the time being, we will not be engaged in nuclear-related issues. The United States is waiting on Iran to respond to its proposal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and end a war that has killed thousands of people, with tensions still high in both the Persian Gulf and in Lebanon. Iran's leaders are yet to indicate whether they'll accept the terms of the deal, though they've previously shown little sign of yielding on their nuclear program and accepting a moratorium on enriching uranium, both top U.S. demands. Stocks fell and oil climbed yesterday amid doubts that a deal could be reached and the vital Strait of Hormuz reopened. Reopening Hormuz, where a fifth of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas flowed before the war brought traffic to a standstill, is a key objective for President Trump. Iran has halted the flow of international traffic through the waterway while the U.S. is carrying out its own blockade of ships transiting to and from Iranian ports. In a bid to ease the crisis, Trump had announced Project Freedom, an initiative to help ships transit the strait, but he abruptly suspended it. Saudi Arabia and Kuwait have lifted restrictions on the U.S.'s military ability to use regional bases, the Wall Street Journal reported yesterday, indicating that could allow the Trump administration to restart an effort to ease traffic through the strait. Diplomatic efforts received new momentum this week. Washington has relayed a one-page memo to the Islamic Republic that could open the strait and lift the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports, according to the person familiar with the matter. That would set the stage for a month of talks aimed at securing a financial agreement to bring the 10-week conflict to a close. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian recently met with Supreme Leader Ayatollah Mojtaba Khomeini for nearly 2.5 hours, the state-owned Mizan news agency reported Thursday. Without saying what the talks were about or when they were held, Iran is set to send a response via Pakistan, acting as a mediator, in the next 2 days. A person familiar with the matter said Wednesday, asking not to be identified, discussing sensitive information. Should the negotiation get to that stage, the sides will discuss Iran's nuclear activities. Trump has repeatedly said the objective of the war is to prevent Tehran having a nuclear weapon, something Iran has always denied. He said Wednesday the U.S. is going to get the Islamic Republic's stockpile of highly enriched uranium as part of the agreement, though there's been no indication Tehran is willing to make that concession. Still, the situation in the region remains tense. Israel said it killed a Hezbollah commander in a southern suburb of Beirut, its first strike on the city since a ceasefire began in Lebanon last month. That demonstrated the fragility of that truce, which paused a parallel war that was hampering peace efforts with Tehran. The U.S. will start a broader and more intense bombing campaign if Iran rejects the initial 14-point peace plan, Trump said earlier in a social media post, though he has repeatedly walked back on threats to escalate the conflict. He told PBS NewsHour he believes there's a very good chance of a deal, possibly before his scheduled summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing next week. Iran's state-affiliated news agency ISNA said reports on elements of the proposal amount to media speculation and atmosphere building, adding that nuclear enrichment is not part of the current discussions. Polls show Americans' distaste for the conflict is growing. 6 months from midterm elections, where energy costs will be a central focus, gasoline prices breached $4.50 a gallon for the first time since July 2022. There we go, according to the American Automobile Association. I try to be an optimist.
Huh?
I try to be an optimist.
Well, let's keep our hopes up.
Mm-hmm.
What else are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think descending into depression fixes anything. Well, in Washington news from Elias Schneider, Fetterman says he won't join the GOP, but that hasn't stopped speculation. Just as Senator John Fetterman's tension with his own party had grown since he began his term in 2023, so have the Pennsylvania Democrats' unexpected friendship with Republican senators. And as Democrats' chances of flipping the Senate in November improve, Fetterman's friends across the aisle have been opening their arms even wider. Pennsylvania GOP Chair Senator Greg Rothman indicated last month that supporting Fetterman's reelection wouldn't be off the table if he switched parties. President Trump asked Sean Hannity to urge Fetterman to become a Republican in exchange for the president's support, according to the Fox News host, but Fetterman has repeatedly said he doesn't plan to switch parties, including Thursday, in an opinion piece published in the Washington Post following a new round of speculation. Being an independent voice that works with the other side to deliver for Pennsylvanians might put me at odds with the party I've stayed committed to and have no plans to leave, but I will continue to put the Commonwealth and the country first, Fetterman wrote. Plus, I'd be a terrible Republican who still votes overwhelmingly with Democrats, he added. So why is everybody talking about Fetterman switching parties if he keeps saying he won't, and why does it matter? Even though he votes with his party the majority of the time, Fetterman has had public disagreements with party leaders on a host of high-profile issues, including recent shutdowns, the Iran war, immigration enforcement, and even Trump's desired White House ballroom. He's consistently voted for Trump's cabinet nominees and has criticized members of his parties for having Trump derangement syndrome, a common Republican attack. And while many Democrats support Israel, including Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and Governor Josh Shapiro, Fetterman has been particularly vocal in criticizing the party's progressive wing over its embrace of the Palestinian cause. In Pennsylvania, Fetterman has polled much better among Republicans and members of his own party in recent months. An eye-popping 73% of Republicans approved of his job performance in February poll, compared to only 22% of Democrats. Progressive groups who once supported his election now routinely stage protests outside his office. He's also had high turnover on his staff, some former employees openly opposing him or expressing concerns about his health. Fetterman has been open about his friendships across the aisle, most notably with Pennsylvania Republican Senator Dave McCormick and Alabama Republican Senator Katie Britt, both of whom he's worked with together on legislation. And he's been spending more time socializing with Republicans lately on Capitol Hill, according to Politico. Fetterman said in his Thursday piece that rejecting divide between parties had become increasingly lonely, albeit necessary. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who has had an icy relationship with Fetterman, said on CNN this week that the senator should honor the fact that he was elected as a Democrat and stay in the party. I don't know what Senator Fetterman is going to do, Shapiro told CNN host Jake Tapper. I know that Pennsylvanians voted for a Democrat to represent them in the United States Senate, so I think he needs to honor that and continue with his service to Pennsylvania and hopefully get back to what he was elected to do and reflect the will of the people. Attacks on Fetterman will likely ramp up from his own party as potential contenders gear up for the 2028 election. Fetterman said in a joint appearance with Britt on NBC News that he has a political future, will run for office again, but fell short of committing to a re-election bid. He's largely avoiding answering whether he plans to run for a seat again in 2028. In response to the speculation about whether Fetterman will remain a member of the Democrat Party, Boyle said in a statement, John Fetterman is getting exactly what he wants, more attention for John Fetterman. Fetterman has described himself as an independent voice within the Democratic Party and said several times he does not plan to switch parties. As much as I'm friends with a lot of Republicans, including my parents, I'm not a Republican, he said in a joint appearance with Britt on NBC News, and that's the truth. While some progressive critics have argued that he's betrayed the ideals he ran on, Fetterman has argued that his ideals have never changed. The senator said on Thursday that he's always turned to those kinds of ideals that define being a Democrat, listening to a slew of priorities. I remain strongly pro-choice, pro-weed, pro-LGBT, pro-SNAP, pro-labor, and even pro-ribeye steak over bio-slop, he wrote. It sounds like a loose bolt.
Now. Oh. Chris Prentice of the Reuters News Service reports there's a poll that tells us that MAHA voters, that's Make America Healthy Again, care about affordability. Even for the Make America Healthy Again voters who helped usher President Trump back to the White House for a second term, affordability will be top of mind when they vote in November's midterm elections, a new poll says. Lowering costs is the top health priority for voters across parties who identified as MAHA supporters, with at least half saying it will have a major impact on their decision to vote and who they will support, according to a poll from KFF, a nonpartisan health research organization. Affordability is proving to be an Achilles heel for a president who campaigned on the issue. Trump's approval rating has sunk to a new low as the war with Iran fuels cost of living concerns, Reuters previously reported. Gasoline prices have surged due to the war, and U.S. restaurant sales have dropped.
Yeah.
Those concerns are expected to hurt Republicans' prospects of maintaining control of Congress this year. In the KFF poll, 61% of all respondents said health costs will have a major impact on who they vote for in November, putting the issue ahead of concerns about food safety and vaccine policy. This poll really shows that the issues the MAHA movement has elevated resonate broadly with the American public, but even for voters who support MAHA, Health care costs are the dominant priority by a wide margin, said Audrey Kearney, chief survey analyst at KFF. The survey was conducted April 14th to 19th online and by telephone among a nationally representative sample of 1,343 U.S. adults. About 500 of those identified themselves as supporters of the MAHA movement, KFF said. KFF found that 42% of MAHA voters said they would choose lowering costs when asked to pick their most important health issue for the federal government. That compared with 21% who prioritized restricting chemical additives in food and 10% who prioritized reevaluating vaccine safety. The poll had a margin of error of plus or minus 3 percentage points. Trump said he would let his Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. go wild on health policy, and the Secretary's actions to cut the number of recommended childhood vaccines and change dietary guidelines have pleased MAHA activists. But the administration has also disappointed many in the movement with some of its actions, such as a February order to protect domestic output of a widely used weed killer, and the April nomination of a former official involved in the U.S. COVID response to lead the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. He shook Bobby Kennedy's hand and said he'd let him go wild, and nothing has been done to reduce our children's exposure to toxic pesticides, said Son Honeycutt, who founded Moms Across America. In fact, the KFF poll found majorities of the public agree there is not enough regulation of chemical additives in food or of pesticides in agriculture. The Trump administration scored low approval ratings on two top MAHA priorities. The KFF poll found 38% of residents approved of the handling of vaccine policy and 46% approved of the handling of food policy. Kennedy's approval has remained relatively steady from polls conducted in September and January, with about 4 in 10 voters approving his job as health secretary. Honeycutt said she remains supportive of Kennedy and is holding out hope the administration will move in a different direction on pesticides. This administration has done more for health than any other administration in recorded history, Honeycutt said. It was brilliant of Trump to bring Kennedy on board. The health secretary has more recently sought quick wins ahead of the midterms after the White House pressed him to back off from vaccine actions that have drawn swift rebukes from major medical groups.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff is hard to read.
Yes, it is.
I'm sorry.
Well, from world news, the Pope and Rubio vow stronger ties amid attack by Trump. This is from Joshua McElwee from Reuters. Pope Leo and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio jointly committed at a meeting on Thursday to improving relations between the Vatican and Washington at a time when President Trump has repeatedly attacked the pontiff. Leo and Rubio renewed the shared commitment to fostering good bilateral relations, the Vatican said in a statement after the first meeting between the Pope and a Trump cabinet official in nearly a year amid an atmosphere of tension with Washington. Leo, the first U.S. Pope, drew Trump's ire after becoming a firm critic of U.S.-Israeli war on Iran and the Trump administration's hardline anti-immigration policies. Trump has kept up an unprecedented series of public attacks on the Pope in recent weeks, drawing a backlash from Christian leaders across the political spectrum. Rubio's meeting with Leo is a sign of strong relationship between the Vatican and the U.S., State Department spokesman Tommy Pigott said. Rubio spent 2.5 hours at the Vatican before driving away in a convoy under tri-security. He also met with senior Vatican officials, including top diplomat Italian Cardinal Pietro Parolin. The U.S. Embassy to the Holy See said on X that Leo and Rubio had discussed topics of mutual interest in the Western Hemisphere. The Vatican statement said that the two had exchanged views on the world situation and spoke about the need to work tirelessly in favor of peace. The meeting appeared to have run even longer than planned. The Pope arrived 40 minutes late for a subsequent meeting with Vatican staffers and thanked them for being patient. Vatican video from the beginning of the closed-door encounter showed Leo shaking hands with his guest and addressing him formally as Mr. Secretary, to which Rubio, a Catholic, responded, "Great to see you." Rubio has also been giving the Pope a small crystal football. He joked that he knew Leo, originally from Chicago and known as a fan of the White Sox, was more of a baseball guy. Leo gave Rubio a small pen made from wood from an olive tree, which he called the plant of peace. Rubio had told a White House briefing on Tuesday he expected to discuss Cuban concerns over religious freedom around the world with Leo. The U.S. ambassador to the Holy See, Brian Birch, said also on Tuesday that the conversation between the Pope and Rubio is likely to be frank. In his public criticism of the Pope, Trump on Monday falsely suggested that Leo believed it was okay for Iran to obtain nuclear weapons and that he was endangering a lot of Catholics by opposing the war. And Leo told journalists at the latest attack that he was spreading the Christian message of peace. The Pope also firmly rejected the idea that he supported nuclear weapons, which Catholic Church teaches are immoral. And during his two-day visit to Rome, Rubio is due to meet Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, who has defended the Pope from Trump on Friday. And Meloni's defense minister has said the war in Iran puts the U.S. leadership at risk. So that gets dicier and dicier.
Indeed.
Let's have a look at a couple of comics here before we sign off for the day, because we've got a couple of good ones, and I'm going to read Jeremy.
Go ahead.
And Dad is sitting, he's kneeling on the floor over his wife, who is passed out on the floor, and Jeremy's standing opposite them watching, and he says, "Jeremy, your mother's out cold. What happened?" And Jeremy says, "I put my dishes in the sink."
Yep.
And you, what would you like to look at?
Well, time to sign off. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Friday, May 8th, 2026. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
J.J. Patak.
and Don Williams. Thanks for listening.
I thought you were going to read.
Welcome summer with your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We're planning a summer bash bigger and better than ever before. It's Friday, June 26th at Creekside Banquet Facility in Grove, located at the corner of Union Road and William Street in Cheektowaga. You're invited to enjoy a buffet chicken and pasta dinner, your first drink on us, a basket raffle, and Buffalo Music Hall of Fame party band The Boys of Summer from 6 to 9 p.m. Tickets are $50 and support the 160 volunteers who read all the programming offered by Radio Reading. That's Friday, June 26th from 6 to 9 p.m. at Creekside Banquet Facility in Grove in Cheektowaga. Get your tickets now by calling 716-821-5555 extension 3 or online at nfradioreading.org. Thank you to New Era Cap Foundation, Tyverin Law, and Perry's Ice Cream for sponsoring this largest event of the year.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have Adirondack Life. Following that at noon is the USA Today. Stay with us for these readings and more. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes